This is Viterbi Voices.
Coming to you from the University of Southern California, Viterbi School of Engineering.
We're here to give you the inside scoop on research, classes, student life, and so much more.
All of these shared by students, faculty, alumni, and other members of the USC community.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Viterbi Voices. As per usual, I'm one of your hosts. My name is Paul Ledesma, Executive Director of Undergraduate Admission here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
Hey, everybody. I'm your other co-host. My name is Maya. I'm a current senior studying Industrial and Systems Engineering here at the University of Southern California.
So Maya, I've been listening to our last couple episodes, and I start every single one recently with how grumpy I am. So I've committed, and even though I had great motivational talks from you about what you resist, persists, I'm committed to not saying that today.
All right.
I'm trying to not say that.
All right.
Even though I feel the same way, but I'm not saying that.
All right. You're not saying it. You don't need to say it. It's
not
okay.
saying it. I'm not saying it. But here we are again, recording again because my schedule is a little overbearing right now. We're recording it at 4:00 on a Friday afternoon, and so I am spent. I don't know how you are. You look sprightly, like you got your day going. You're having a good day. It's warm in LA. You're like I think I pulled you off of like a day of activities here to record this.
Yeah, I've been pretty active today. I had my last in-person meeting for my senior design course this morning, so I was up pretty early. And I just got back from the gym, which is probably why I'm in a good mood.
Go. The endorphins are going. You're ready to go.
Yeah,
See,
the endorphins
that's what
are
I
going.
need. I've just been sitting here all day, and I'm just like I'm like that's also why I asked you to get in here early, because I'm like I need to get out. I need to like go somewhere, and I need to do something. I need to get some exercise because I have not exercised today, and I'm feeling it.
I 100% get like that. Like if I'm sitting in one place for too long, I am antsy and I am grumpy. So yes.
So,
totally.
But this is an exciting episode that we should just stop with the ramble jamble here, and get to the point of this episode, because you've put together what I think is going to be a incredible resource for parents of newly admitted students. Tell everyone what this episode is all about.
Yes, I will tell a little bit, and then feel free to jump in or add some stuff at the end. But this is an episode targeted for parents of prospective or admitted students for USC. So we have two different parents that we're interviewing. One is actually my wonderful father, and the other is another Viterbi student's parents. And they're answering questions about like their experience, like their family's experience through the student who's attending USC, different challenges that their student faced, and ultimately like answering the question of like, what can we as parents do to help our students, at least through these two perspectives? So understanding that it's not necessarily transferable to all situations, but I think it's definitely useful to understand two different perspectives and what worked for two different sets of parents and the lessons learned.
Yeah, I think it's important for parents to always hear different perspectives. I think, I think the one thing that I'll offer up is that parenting's a lot like a really complex video game where you get down a certain way on how to play, like you get good at it, and then you level up, and then you're like, oh no, I don't know what I'm doing here. And then like you figure that one out and you level up. And so like whether that's going through even going back to like pregnancy, and then going into like the newborn baby, and then going into like the toddler era, and then going into adolescence and puberty, and just young adulthood, and college admission. Each one of those provides its own level of challenges where you think like, oh my God, I don't know what to do here. I don't know what's happening. So hopefully what this episode does is it provides some perspectives for parents that are going through this, maybe create some thought patterns that they hadn't have, maybe to answer some questions that they have. Maybe at the end of the day, it just helps as a nice little counseling session for people to hear from other elements. Now, what are the types of topics that we're going to be covering here, Maya? Are we going to be covering like the college admission landscape and like how students chose this? Is it more focused on parenting through the college years?
Yeah, so we have this set list of questions that should be pretty similar, answering from both of the families. Obviously, the conversations were different, but the
Sure.
first part of the questions revolve around a background of the family and just in general, like that pre-USC process. So, how the family approached the college admission landscape, like what ultimately they think like motivated their student to choose USC. I know that was very interesting
Mm,
to hear my
mm.
dad's perspective of like my why USC.
Had you never talked to it about him before?
We had definitely talked about it, but like hearing how he framed it like made complete sense to me and it was interesting to see like that other perspective.
Got
I
it.
think he was yeah, totally on the money with it too. But then after like this initial overview of the family and the process, then we talk about in general like how a family helps their student adapt to life at USC during the transition, different challenges the student faced and how like the family can help navigate them, overall campus life and like academic life at USC through a parent's perspective, and just in general some advice and memorable moments.
All right. Well, let's dive right in, and then we will join you all listeners on the other side of this for a little bit further conversation and some other things that might be going on. See you then.
My name is Grace Sampson, and I'm a current senior here at the university studying mechanical engineering. I am joined with my parents, Joseph and Roseanne. Our whole family is from Iowa, specifically Bluegrass, Iowa, which is on the eastern side of the state. So we live very close to the Mississippi River, and we all come from a town of a population of about 1,500. So a really small town, moving to LA. So I'm hoping my parents can help share a little bit of our family's experience. Do you guys want to say hello?
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm just going to ask you guys some questions about my experience at the university, and I'd love to hear you guys' take. So first and foremost, I'm really interested to hear you guys' response to this question, but why do you think I chose USC?
Ro or Joe first?
Well, you can start, Dad.
Well, what I tell everybody, I think your most important thing was that it's Will Ferrell's alma mater.
And I will add that I think you chose it because we toured several California colleges and you liked the class diversity and the different outreach programs that USC had to offer.
Pop quiz, Mom, what was my major when I started at USC?
Your major was civil engineering?
Nope. Not quite.
Wait, environmental.
Nope. Not quite. I wasn't an engineer to start at USC. Dad, do you know what my major was?
Environmental sciences?
Poetry? How many ago was it?
No. Okay, so I've changed my major quite a few times. I started environmental science and health on the pre-med track, and then I switched into Viterbi as an environmental engineer, and then I became a civil engineer for a short stint, about 2 weeks, and then I finally crash landed in mechanical engineering, and that's what I'll graduate in. So it was a long path. Speaking of which, Dad, were you ever worried about me finding a major since I changed my mind so many times?
No, I think we just always pushed you to keep exploring. And I think that was one of your big um, things about USC was the availability to be open to changing majors after you got there because you really didn't have an exact course other than kind of a thought process.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
Yeah, I did change my mind a lot. I think part of the reason I was able to find a major that I was happy with is because my parents were so flexible with me and really supported my decision to explore other options, which I think is really important your freshman and sophomore year. And I am still on the pre-med track. So if I ever decide to go back, that door is always open. All right. Next question. So I made a big move. I went from Iowa to Los Angeles. So how did we handle the transition to USC? Maybe first and foremost, how did we handle the transition in my sophomore year since we were completely online due to COVID-19 my freshman year? Mom, you can start. What was your take on moving to LA?
My take on moving to LA, the
Were you
traffic,
scared?
no, I wasn't scared. I was excited. I was excited for you. I was scared about being so far away from you. because you're way out here on the West Coast and we're in the middle of the country in Iowa. And so that scared me. But I guess the reassuring thing to me was seeing all the other USC students and how much like you they were, just in their ability to adapt. And they all were very smart, respectful students. And so that appealed to me. And I knew you'd have a great time with a great friend group.
Any thoughts on moving to LA? I know you've had to help me move a bunch of stuff into my apartment, Dad, and put together IKEA furniture.
Honestly, I mean, I think with being a little overwhelmed to begin with. I mean, I think that it went very smoothly. I mean, I think, and I mean, the fact that we did take the time to tour some schools out there and schools in general. And I think probably the biggest comfort level was after we actually toured the campus and just kind of felt like it was a closed, tight-knit community. That you had a zone that you would be at to start with, and then it seems like you kind of branched out from there as your comfort level expanded as far as exploring the city and the beaches and surrounding towns and like that. But for the initial thing, I thought that it was really nice that you were just in the USC confines, kind of.
I will say I was nervous about the driving. The 8 lanes of traffic scared me. That's not something I was familiar with, but this has nothing to do with USC, but I can tell anybody that does travel to USC to visit that I have found nothing but courteous drivers around me, and people, for the most part, are super patient, and especially when you're driving on the interstates and the freeways, people are very courteous drivers. And that was a big surprise to me. And it was also very refreshing. And it's a really positive thing about California and the patience level of the people that live in this large community.
And I think you have to preface that with the fact that we were able to come out for 3 months in the winter for 3 straight years. So it's not like we just came out for a week. I mean, for us to stay off campus and be able to drive an RV in the community and everything else, you're 100% right, Roseanne. That, I mean, it was an incredibly good experience because we're only 2 hours from Chicago, and it's a different kind of traffic in Chicago for sure than it is in LA.
Agree.
For sure. What's your favorite thing to do in Southern California during the time you guys have spent here with me, Mom?
I love to go for walks. You know that.
It's a little colder in Iowa right now.
I love the Long Beach area where we stay. I love walking around campus and through the village with you. I love to go for walks and just enjoy the beauty of California. I have a whole new appreciation for the state, and I really enjoy. That's my favorite thing, is to go for a walk or a bike ride. Dad?
Yeah, I think it's terribly difficult to pick one thing just because it is kind of coming from the Midwest and everything. It was just kind of a surreal experience going to even the first time we went, and when we were touring schools and we stayed in Hollywood and going to visit the studios and the car museum and football games at the stadium and the NASCAR race at the stadium. It's impossible to pick one thing. There hasn't been anything that we've done there and I mean, it's having friends out and taking day trips to San Diego. It's an infinite amount of things to do there, but I guess I can't say one specific thing. Probably going on tours of the campus with Grace.
You guys are so sweet. We just went to a comedy club to see David Spade, who's one of my favorites and my dad's favorites. And my mom really likes him too. So it's nice that they pick me. And I hope to show them a little more of campus before I graduate this spring. All right. So I'm fortunate that both of my parents have spent a lot of time with me on campus. They both attended Parents Weekend, so they've had the opportunity to see a couple of my different classes, one in the environmental engineering department and one in the mechanical engineering department. But how do you guys feel I have enjoyed my experiences at USC? Are there any professors that have been my favorites? I will be curious to hear your answer to this one.
Yes, I think you have a lot of favorites. I think so many of the professors have went out of their way um, to help you and promote you. And I think the USC professors, from what I can see, really promote those students that they realize are working hard. And you are working hard. And I think that you have gained a lot of benefit from going to USC.
I mean, I'm terrible with names, so I don't know that, but I mean, you've never been one that's shy to critique a teacher or
Oh, don't say that.
say that you were displeased with something, and I just have never heard that with USC. I mean, I've heard you say that when you're going into a course that such and such is going to be a difficult professor, and it just seems like you've always kind of risen to the occasion and worked your way around I don't feel like I've ever had a conversation since you've been there where something's been unfair. Um, just your specific interactions with the electric car team and the professor that's the lead on that, and mom and I getting to sit in on some of your meetings, and just
But
looking at the interactions that you have with them, it's impressive.
Even from the beginning of your time at USC, you were doing homeschooling because of the COVID pandemic. And then you yourself got COVID grace. And you actually had a professor reach out to you to see how you were feeling and how you were doing. And I just think, in general, from what I can tell and from the stories you've told us, the professors all go above and beyond. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. I will say Dr. Stalins has been one of my favorite professors I've ever had. Probably will graduate as my favorite just since I've spent so much time with him and had the opportunity to go to a Tesla workshop with him for the electric car team. And he pushes me. He's a difficult professor, but difficult in a good way. And that I feel like every time that I have an interaction with him, he challenges me to be a better engineer. And I appreciate those professors that do challenge their students to be better, especially when they know they can be. And you guys have also met Dr. Sanders in the environmental engineering department. And
Or is
really,
on a first name basis with her.
yeah, that's my roommate who we both really, really enjoy Dr. Sanders. So great professors during my time at USC.
And you're the one that likes McDonald's.
Yes, I should preface that I come from a McDonald's family. So my mom's side of the family has owned McDonald's franchises, and that was truly, truly a treat to one of the professors that I had my freshman year. So what do you guys think has been my most challenging experience at USC, or when do you think I've struggled the hardest, and how did you help me navigate that? I don't really know if school has been my hardest challenge.
It hasn't. I think you've enjoyed every minute that you've been at USC. I think your biggest struggle is being away from your boyfriend. And as an only child, you're very close to your pets and being away from your pets and your mom and dad. And I think that has probably been the biggest challenge. And I definitely see your growth in that regard. So I don't know. I think it's still been all pretty good.
Would you agree, Dad?
Yeah, I agree that it's probably I mean your relationship with Waker and your family in general, just the times, but I mean you've delved into school so much that I feel like that's helped out. And I mean you have some fantastic roommates and friends that we've met and people there. I mean it's sometimes family's just family, but I do feel like that you've been able to navigate well. And like we said when you started school, Grace, that because of the COVID situation, I mean there was a situation there where you were contemplating on not going to USC after spending another year at home and still wavering. And if you remember correctly, I just told you that I mean I wanted you to at least go one semester because it was your dream, and then if it was that upsetting that it wasn't gonna, I mean I wasn't gonna be upset either way, but that definitely don't go back. And you came home at Christmas and you said, yes, I missed people, but I've never had an experience at a school like this that's opened up the doors and the people, and you loved it. And that far trumped, I think, some of your sadness over missing people.
I agree. I think Dad hit the nail on the head when he said that we could tell right away you were excited and enjoyed all your roommates and enjoyed all your professors. And it seemed to me like just the professors in the school in general went above and beyond to make all the incoming sophomores feel welcome coming in with the new freshmen, since it was their first time on campus. So it was kind of a unique situation. But I think that the school definitely rose to the challenge of welcoming in a freshman and a sophomore class. And I just think that it all went really smoothly for you.
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree with both my parents. My biggest challenge has probably been managing a relationship with my boyfriend while in school. He's an engineer at Iowa State studying civil engineering, but we've been dating for 6 years for the whole time I've been in college and most of high school. So that's been a bit of a challenge, and just being away from my family because I am family oriented. But I think students that are thinking about going to USC should, like my dad said, definitely give it a try because it is very rewarding. And I think you should do what you want to do first and take a step outside of your comfort zone. And then if you can always go back on that, but you can't, you don't want to regret that for the rest of your life. So I echo what both my parents have said. How would you describe the overall campus life at USC? And we'll start with Dad.
I don't, in the shortest terms, probably endless possibilities. I mean, from the time that we walked onto campus and there were an infinite number of groups to join and things to do, and with your extracurricular time, I mean, I think that's with your interest level and the different things that you want to be a part of. I think that was probably a little bit of a struggle for you because you tend to like to try everything, but there was no possible way to do that. And yeah, I just think that it's so cool, all the groups and the enthusiasm of the student body there, from being in the SWE thing to the electric car team to being a tour guide. It's just been, I feel like if you can't find something to do there, you're not looking.
Definitely.
The possibilities are endless. I really feel the possibilities are endless at this school. I think that's the thing that attracted you, was the fact that you weren't tied down to one particular major right out of the gate, that they're very open to working with the students and letting you make different choices and try different things. And they don't care how many things you try. So I think that's pretty cool.
I do think there's a cap, though. Maybe if there's a thing that when I asked you guys about my biggest challenge at USC, overcommitting myself might go hand in hand with missing my family. Sometimes I get a little bit in over my head, which is a good thing.
Oh,
No way, not
you.
me. I would never do
not.
that. What's my favorite involvement at USC? You guys should know this. This should be an easy one.
I would say electric car team.
Nope.
I would have to say your favorite involvement at
Sorry, Dr. Stalins.
would have to be tour guide.
Nope. Oh, you guys aren't thinking outside the box enough.
Tutor?
Something fun.
Oh, skiing.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't
good
get-
one, Joe.
I don't get to go up as much this semester just because I've been so busy with everything else. I love to be a teaching assistant for MECOP as well. That's been really rewarding and fun. So I encourage kids that had a passion for a certain class or a certain professor to ask them if they can get involved in any capacity with reteaching that curriculum or being a teaching assistant or a grader, just involved with the course. Let's change gears a little bit. I'd like to talk about, I know it's been 4 years now, which is crazy, a little bit about me applying to college and your role as a parent through that. So to kick it off with something fun, do you guys remember how many schools I applied to?
9.
Like 7 to 9.
Oh, you're so wrong. How do you guys not know this? I'll let you both try again.
11.
No.
16. I forget how many around that time.
Close. I applied to 14 schools. So, because I applied to both of my in-state schools as well as a bunch out of state and in California. But it was a really, really stressful time for me. And I think for you guys, especially when we were on our family trip that year. And I just remember we were like watching the fireworks in Hawaii, and I enjoyed it. But at the same time, I was like working on college essays at the same time. And it was just like a very trying time for me. How were you guys present as parents, and what advice do you have for parents that are trying to help their students through college applications right now?
Well, I think we try to open up avenues for people that would help you. I think that it was a lot of people that you had teachers at high school and from previous teachers at Rivermont that helped you with some things. Mom and I have always been.
We probably should preface, Dad, that neither one of us graduated from college. And for us, it was quite an honor for you to get into USC and for many of the college opportunities that you got. But I think I have to agree with Dad. I think the most important thing that we did as parents were to do networking, to try and find people for you to meet with that had many years of college experience, or maybe even more professors.
Your friend Regina,
Right.
read my essays.
Right. To give you some guidance.
I think Mom and I both coming from family businesses in a small community where we lacked knowledge of how that worked. We definitely had more than enough people to contact and talk to, whether they're clients or work associates or whatever. We've always been pretty good about going to somebody that has the knowledge versus acting like we had the knowledge.
Definitely. And I think resources really help. Both of my high school English professors read through my essays and gave me pretty constructive feedback that I think you should be careful about taking advice from people reading your college essays. I think it's great to have more eyes on them, but don't let that change your voice, because you want your essays to be as unique to you as possible, and no one alive is youer than you. So if someone is recommending a change that either compromises your integrity or is like changing the narrative from what you want it to be, that's central to you, then that to me is not constructive feedback. But having them read your essay to help your point come across better is a totally different story. But I'll get off my soapbox a little bit. So through the college application process, I get accepted to several schools. What do you think set USC apart from the other schools that I applied to? Not necessarily why I chose USC, but why it made it to like my final two that I was deciding between. You go first.
I think the climate was probably appealing. And I think that you had already begun to meet some other students and find out about some activities. And I think that helped you solidify USC. So networking in that regard.
I think a lot of it had to do with taking the time to do the campus visit. I think that really helped solidify your opinion after you visited the campus. And
what was our tour guide's name? Do you remember?
Fight on T. Does it start with a T?
It does start with a T.
I'm close. It's definitely not Tim.
Fight on Trevor.
Trevor. I would have never got that one.
That's okay. Trevor was awesome, though. I think that changed my opinion of the campus.
Made you want to be a tour guide.
Definitely. Did you enjoy the campus tour, Mom? It was a little cloudy the day we came to visit Southern California.
No, I thought it was a great experience. I thought Trevor had an outstanding personality and was very optimistic and positive. But here again, just going back to the very first question you asked us, I just really thanked all the diversity and things that you could get your hands into at USC and get involved with really spoke to you. And I think that's what spoke to you about USC versus other colleges.
For sure. Who's the the official USC mascot?
The Trojan.
Nope. Try again.
The corgi?
No, not the corgi, not Tofu the corgi.
No.
We have a corgi for the listeners. He sits across from Tommy Trojan in the main quad. There's a
The guy with the
statue of Tommy
sword.
Trojan. No,
No,
there's a statue of Tommy
It's the
Trojan.
horse, but I can't
Oh,
think
the
of
horse.
his name.
What's the horse's name?
Nay, I don't know.
Flipper?
It starts with T, a T, another T.
Why can't we think of this, Joe? This is embarrassing. We know the
Oh,
answer to this one.
Traveler.
Oh,
Traveler.
Traveler's it.
Yep. Trojan white horse. So I'm trying to think of other like pop quiz questions I can ask you. What's my favorite class that I've taken since I started at USC? I don't know if you guys will get this one.
I think I do know it.
What is it?
The Jewish religion class.
Wasn't my religion class. Dad might know because Dad took part of this class with me. Well, not took, but we were online, so he watched part of this class with me.
Oh, the theater class, movie class.
Yep, intro to
Oh,
cinema
yeah.
was
Cinema?
good.
Cinema.
The professor was really good. My dad and my boyfriend watched all the movies with me. It was movie night because we were online during COVID, so that was fun. What was your favorite movie that we watched in the class, Dad?
Oh, that was 3 years ago. I don't know.
Oh, come on. There's a really good one that won a bunch of awards that I think you and I both really liked. The theme was horror.
Yeah.
So
it
that
too
that
scary
was
for me.
that
I
was not
out.
good because I don't really like horror movies. So it's a good thing that I was at home because I think I had a renewed appreciation watching them with you and Wake.
Yeah, and I couldn't do the horror either. So
We watched Parasite.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
That was really good. We watched Get Out, the Jordan Peele that turned me on to Jordan Peele. So then you and I went and saw his movie Nope, and we liked Nope.
Yeah.
So it's just very interesting to see movies through the lens of a cinema student. And I encourage every potential USC student and future USC student to try courses in different disciplines because you become a more like well-rounded student. I know you've probably heard that a lot through the college application process, but it really is true. And you get a whole new appreciation for the other fields of study. All right, well, we'll wrap things up. One final question for both of you. We'll start with Dad. What is the most memorable moment that you've experienced since I started school at USC?
To do with your school, you mean?
Yep. Or anything
Other than the final tuition payment?
other than the final tuition payment.
I would say probably our first parents' weekend where we went to all the talks, and and you became somewhat friends with Anna, but Anna's talk that was president of SWE at the time, and just that whole weekend was super cool to see.
The band? You guys saw the band?
Yeah, see the band practice and just, yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the most time that we spent kind of involved in campus and stuff. And yeah, I just thought that was a really cool weekend.
Mom?
my most memorable time, this is coming from a mom's perspective, keep in mind, but of course, you're always worried about your child. And my most memorable event was probably saying goodbye to Grace for the first time, the first year of school that she was on campus. And she really wasn't that sad.
Dad was happy to say goodbye after he hung up all my stuff that I wanted to hang
She
up.
had really made some close friends in her 3 roommates, and they had connected online quite a bit prior to being able to come to campus their sophomore year. So they really had developed some friendships, and it I think was exciting for you, Grace, and that put my mind at ease, and it was very memorable. Naturally, I was sad, and I know you were a little sad too. But I could feel your excitement, and I could really feel your passion for the school and the friendships that you were developing. And I was excited for you for that. So
Definitely. I think my most memorable experience with my parents since I started at USC was actually recently. I think when you came for Parents Weekend this year and you got to see both the frames of both the cars. And you got to meet my professor and our machinist that works in our mechanical engineering lab, and some of my other friends, my friend Brian, who is from Brazil, and my friend Josh, who's from California. I really enjoyed having you guys on campus this fall because you got to see everything one last time. So it was really nice, and I'm looking forward to graduation and you guys being there. So thanks to everybody for listening, and thanks to both my parents for being here.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Fight on.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Maya, one of your co-hosts for the Viterbi Voices podcast. I'm a current senior studying industrial and systems engineering, and welcome to our special Viterbi Parents episode. I'm sure Paul introduced this at the beginning of the podcast, but yeah, I'm very excited. I have a very special guest here. I feel like I'm making my way through every member of my family, but today I have my wonderful father here with me to answer some questions about his perspectives and his experiences with having kids at Viterbi. Yeah, two kids actually, me and my twin brother Charlie, who was just on the last episode. So yeah, Dad, first could you take some time to do you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about the family?
Sure. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on, Maya.
Mhm.
My name is Rob Schwander. As Maya mentioned, I'm the parent to Maya and Charlie, who are twins, and both studying at Viterbi. We live in Hudson, Wisconsin, which is a bedroom community of the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. I've spent a good majority of my life in Minnesota, and now just bordering on Minnesota. So kind of grew up in the upper Midwest, and I went to school in Minnesota as well. I got my graduate degree at the University of Minnesota at the Carlson School of Management. And so we've lived in Hudson for over 20 years now, raised Maya and Charlie there, and now they can't believe that they're graduating. It's been a bit of a whirlwind. Super proud, and I'm really excited to talk today because I've had a great view of their experience at Viterbi, and I'm happy to certainly provide our perspectives from a parent's point of view too.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, and it's kind of crazy. One of my teachers mentioned, I think the middle of next week is halfway through the last semester.
Yeah,
which is crazy to think of, like 7 weeks left of college.
Yeah, it's hard to get my head around that, to be honest. But I saw it with other people, other parents whose kids went to school, and you'd blink an eye and they're graduating. And I always shook my head and thought, how can that be possible?
Mhm.
And I kind of assumed that maybe it would seem like a little slower when it was actually my kids and I was checking in weekly and getting a kind of a more in-depth viewpoint. But no, it was pretty fast.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, fast for all of us, but it's been a really great experience, and I'm excited to dive in and honestly hear about your perspective. I'm reading through the questions that I have, and it's interesting. I'm excited to hear what you say to it. But yeah, so after introducing yourself, the first question I have is, what motivated your students to choose USC in your perspective?
Okay. Well, we were in that unique spot right on the precipice of COVID.
Mhm.
We had started looking at schools probably late in sophomore year, doing some college visits. Charlie and Maya were our first kids, and so we were pretty intentional about wanting them to see a lot of different experiences and different situations, just to kind of see what they gravitated to and really give them visibility to options. So one of those trips was a West Coast trip. We visited USC, UCLA, Pomona. We saw Pepperdine on that trip.
Mhm.
So we got to see those schools. To be honest, I think they agreed coming out of that trip that USC was the one that stuck out to them and remained it kind of got placed on their list. And so we went through the process. We saw schools all over the country, close to us, near, far, Midwest, East, West, had a lot of different options. At the end of the day, couple things happened. We went on the visit for your scholarship applications. That was the not Explore.
Yeah, it was Explorer. Yeah.
Okay, Explorer. And so that was a fantastic trip. I was really impressed with the way that Viterbi, the USC in general, but Viterbi in particular, structured that event and the way that they exposed them to what life would be like at school. And they did a great job with the parents too.
Mm-hmm.
But coming out of there, I really feel like USC rose to the top in a fairly significant way, and became a lot more attainable to them from a perspective they could really see themselves in that community, and that really kind of is what brought them into the final consideration. Of course, the reputation of the school is impressive. The reputation of Viterbi and the types of opportunities and doors that it opens certainly caught their attention, as it did mine. But really, going far away, that was, an opportunity for them to get their arms around that and what that would feel like to them. And I think that really brought them comfort in seeing what that was, and making them feel like they could do this. It also felt challenging. And frankly, I think both of you liked that part of it. I mean, you wanted the challenge, you wanted to add to your own perspectives. And so I think all of that kind of combined together. Unfortunately, COVID also cut short our ability to look at some other schools. We had other schools on the list to visit after USC that we weren't able to because, frankly, they just shut down school visits. Literally, we were when we were at Explore. I remember this was the first time I saw masks available. There was a lot of conversation about what is this.
Nobody. It was like March 2nd, 2020.
Yeah. So, I mean, we were literally a week away from everything shutting down. This was the last time that we had to visit. And so I'm really grateful that we got it in. I feel like it was kind of divine blessing to get us here to see it. But yeah, I think that part was all, so it was reputation. It was the quality of the school. It was the quality of the experience and the desire of you two to challenge yourselves in a new way. That's what I think brought you to USC.
Yeah, I like you bringing it back to our like in-person experience, and like how you framed it, I think makes complete sense. Like that was the first time I was introduced to the type of people at USC, and I could have actual conversations with students. And like, I think Charlie and I both expressed like, these are the sort of people that we want to be around for the next 4 years. So then we could really, we made that leap to actually starting to consider ourselves as USC students and have an understanding of like who we would be if we were at this school, which is really cool.
Well, it was fun for me to watch, for sure.
Awesome.
Of course, it wasn't easy. I mean, if I had my way, it'd be right down the road. And this really wasn't. This was a 4-hour. Yeah. So we had to, I know we got our heads around that, certainly. But we saw how excited you were. There was never any question of that. And so that made it very exciting for us as well, even though, it wasn't exactly the logistics that we wanted.
Yeah. That kind of brings us to the next question. I think you started to speak about it. But is there anything you want to add as far as to answer the question how your family approached the college selection process? So we talked a bit about how we tried to emphasize like going to different colleges in person, but just on a high level overview, like I don't know, how did you and mom approach facilitating our college selection process?
Well, yeah, so obviously we thought it was important to get viewpoints from a lot of different perspectives of different types of colleges, big colleges, small colleges, liberal arts, technical colleges, different areas of the country, geographies, and all of that. So I think that part was good. We actually worked a bit with a college counselor as well, which I thought was really helpful. Shout out, Andrea.
I think that was super helpful to just like kind of give us all context as we were the first kids. And like sometimes like I don't know, the resources just offered by your high school might not be like entirely helpful. So
yeah, and they're helpful to a degree, right? But I think what we got through that process was, very tailored thinking and exercises to, and it wasn't even just about looking at the colleges. It was really about helping you to explore what it is that you wanted to study. And once you identified the areas that you're interested in studying, then identified what are the colleges that fit that. What are the areas? And, and Andrea was really good about talking about the arena that you wanted to get into. And so understanding that people oftentimes change their mind, which, we have a perfect case in point with your brother. Charlie started out in a different domain of engineering. And, it as it turned out, he changed his mind and switched from environmental engineering to industrial systems engineering after a semester. To Andrea's point in the selection process, she helped us to see that we wanted to look for schools in which you got placed into that arena that was your starting point, but also gave you a lot of latitude to change, right? So if you knew it might change in a different direction, you want to be at a school where you can do that and you can pivot and you can benefit from, the types of programs and resources that they have to enable you that flexibility to change. That was part of the conscious process. And one of the things you might remember, Maya, that because this is what we were looking at, one of the things that really stuck out around USC is the whole engineering plus type of mentality, whereby, you were getting a world-class engineering degree, but it was more than just engineering. There was multidisciplinary curriculum. There was the ability to kind of pivot and learn and study other things and grow your interests rather than just, being down a targeted course. And so that was certainly part of it. So Andrea really helped the thinking process around what types of things you wanted to study and what types of environments were conducive to that. I think that was a piece of our search and how, we kind of added schools and removed schools from consideration.
Yeah, I think that's something that's definitely underemphasized in a college selection process. And that definitely is something that I think, as a family, us having those conversations has been super helpful, determining maybe we are sure about engineering, but not sure about which one. So, understanding what those differences and what the implications of changing a major would be at different schools and taking that into account. Yeah, that's definitely something that I think was helpful that we kind of talked about as a family.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. And then there's always, a consideration around, the availability of merit aid, what types of resources were available financially for any, or for our family's needs and considerations. And, everybody will need to go through that process in their own math, right? But that was a piece of it from the start. I mean, we had we're consciously looking at what types of programs schools offered and how that would look for, their 4 years.
Yeah. That's another thing. I think all that information is it's out there online, but you might have to sift through it a little bit, or read on the boards, but that was definitely
do some scenario planning. If it works this way, what does that look like? Et cetera.
Yeah, for sure. So now that we talked about pre-USC, I guess, and kind of why we chose to go to USC, now we're transitioning into asking some questions about our time at USC and your guys' experience. So the next question is, how did your family help your student adapt to life at USC during the transition from high school? And I know our case might be a little interesting with COVID.
But let's put it out there. I mean, it's very non-traditional. As I already mentioned, this was on the very early days of COVID. So you had a non-traditional college entrance. Your first semester, freshman year, was spent in the basement of our house. And you and Charlie took online courses. We had there were some students, I think, that did come out to USC, but for everybody's context, you weren't allowed to live on campus. And so if you came out to Los Angeles to study, there wasn't a place for you. In fact, there weren't any in-person classes to attend. So we decided that you would stay at home for that first semester, which I don't have any I don't have any regrets about. I think it was the right move in
Yeah.
consideration of the time.
Yeah. And when we say we refer to like me, you, mom, Charlie. I think we all had this conversation together, which was
For sure.
helpful.
Yeah. And but at the same time, it was very hard for me to watch, and your mom, because we had that freshman experience and we wanted that for you. And you were being deprived of it, just as you were deprived of the end of your senior year experience. And that was challenging for us. It was really difficult. So, we supported you as best we could. We had you, spend time with, other campuses or things that you could see as well that maybe weren't as restricted. And so you got to get a view of it. But again, it's COVID time, so we're being cautious from a health perspective too. So that wasn't awesome, but USC, I thought, had done a pretty good job of still facilitating some, introductory to college experiences and introducing to people in certain communities. And it was all virtual and online, but it was still growing your connections, your familiarity with people.
Yeah,
So,
some of my best friends I'm still friends with now, like Lucas, Christian, Luke. Like I met everybody that first semester virtually, which is kind of funny that it all carried over once we met in person too. But yeah.
Right. And you might remember too, your first roommates, you had already been aligned to be roommates with them. We had them all come to our house a week, and you got your little bit of small group college experience with your roommates. All of you living in our basement for a week and studying together. So that was kind of fun. A week substitute for, a campus experience, but it was what it was. Then, so at the end of the first semester, you and Charlie both decided that you really wanted to not miss your first year of Los Angeles entirely. And so we moved you out into an apartment at Gateway, and you each had your own apartment with separate roommates, and started, I guess your non-traditional college career away from home, which was, I was very happy you were able to do that. It was still not a full experience because school still wasn't in person. You were still taking classes remotely, but from your apartment in Los Angeles, and you got to do things, at least in a college community afterwards. I know that's when Charlie, got involved in fraternal life, and you got involved in several activities and clubs and things like that. So a bit more of the normal college experience, still very watered down from, what we know today and what we knew for that.
Yeah,
but
what any prospective student will hopefully experience.
Yeah, I don't wish this on anybody, but once again, I thought USC did a good job of trying to, still provide some quality experience and, make the best of it in essence. There's certainly many things that are out of their control because, they're county restrictions or federal restrictions or whatever that might be, but they rolled with it, and I still feel like you got off to a good start, and it led to, a good segue.
One thing that, like, when I think back to that time when we were in Gateway and it was just our first experience, like living on our own at USC, I think you and mom and just the family in general, you guys were very helpful, in that you were, like, you always offered your support and you guys would always be there if we wanted to call or if we wanted to text. But at the same time, you respected, like, if we at certain times needed space and kind of like some more independence and freedom to work something out on our own. So I think you guys really helped support Charlie and I in that sense, where, like, you were very flexible with your communication, because I'm sure it was difficult, like with both of your first kids going off to college two at once. But I think you guys were always very, like, kind and, I mean, for lack of a better word, very mature with like communicating and putting, like, understanding that our needs might have been different than yours at different times.
Well, yeah, I mean, we both went through that experience. We had so this is interesting because Mom and I have talked about this a few times. We had the benefit of going through this experience previously. There's a number of, first generation college students that navigate this process for the first time without any frame of reference. That goes for their parents too, because they haven't experienced it before. And so there's definitely a lot of privilege that goes with having already done this yourself, and knowing, being able to empathize and put yourself in that student's perspective, because we had that same perspective. I remember going to school. I remember the independence that I wanted. I remember the type of support I wanted. And that doesn't mean you and Charlie are just like me, but it does give you a lens of perspective to, what those people are going through. And that empathy helps you then behave in different ways. So I thought, it was challenging to just, kind of pull back at times, because there's always a tendency and a desire to want to jump in and help and be, fix things if things needed fixing. One of the challenges of a parent is always that line of letting you fall, letting you pick yourself up, but making sure that you're within, arm's length of making sure that it's nothing, that you're not getting into anything too dangerous. And we had a lot of trust for you as well. I think you both are in that trust, and so that helped. But it's a fine line and a balance. But we do our best. I'm sure we make mistakes here and there. That's obvious. But yeah, I appreciate that you noticed that, because that it's pretty intentional that you're trying to make that happen as a parent.
No, of course, yeah. I'm like trying not to get emotional, honestly. Like I'm just gonna chalk it up to being a senior and thinking back at all of these times. But yeah, definitely have been very grateful for how you guys supported both of us at USC, and like the different phases throughout the 4 years of what we needed. But yeah, okay. So next question. In this, I'm curious as to what your answer to this one will be. So how has your student found the academic experience at USC? Or like, are there any professors or moments that have left lasting impressions? And I guess you could say students. To be completely honest too, I think Charlie and I are in pretty similar classes. So like hopefully not too different of an answer.
Well, I mean, you're in similar classes, but you two have definitely kind of had your own individual USC experiences. You studied abroad, Charlie didn't. And Charlie had a fraternal experience that you didn't. You've each been involved in different clubs and in different activities. And so, yeah, and that's one thing I tell people all the time. I think it's really cool how you each were, you're from the same environment with the same name, the same parents, you're in the same major, but you've got such a different college experience. So that part's kind of fun to me. Back to your question. I think, well, one thing that stands out to me, I had the pleasure of actually presenting to one of your classes, if you remember.
Oh yeah.
One of your professors had me in to present for a day when you were learning about ERP fundamentals.
Yeah, the class was Enterprise Information Systems, and our professor was Professor Nitin Kale.
Right. And I know you two are both fond of him. I think certainly, I know Charlie did some research. You both did research, and so that was a good experience. I think what's interesting to me, and this will go back to the multidisciplinary piece. And I had the same experience as a college student myself, mind you. I was a business management major, but some of my favorite classes that I had, and the ones that I remember the most from college, were the courses outside of my major field of study, and and psychology and philosophy courses and anthropology. I had a course in the history of Japan. I know, Maya, you had, courses that you really enjoyed that were just not in the tradition, and ballroom dance that you took 2 times. And so that to me that's the quintessential college learning experience, right? It's getting to broaden your horizons, try things that you know nothing about and that you don't even know if you might be interested, but you discover, passion might be a strong word, but you discover strong interest and enjoyment for those things. I know Charlie has, would say the same thing. The courses that he enjoyed the most, work in his general course of study. That being said, I know you both have talked about the kind of the rigor of the coursework and the preparedness. I see the preparedness that you have coming out of college. I compare it to what I had in my experience, and I feel like you are both light years ahead of where I was in terms of your readiness for professional careers and really amazing professional careers and the skills that you've built. So it's hard for me to quibble with the quality of the education. I mean, the things the hard skills that you've developed, as well as the soft skills that you've developed through the various experiences in your classes and your activities, leadership skills, conflict management, the group dynamics, all those things. I just feel like you guys are just on it. And so that's a credit to the school, of course. It's a credit. It's a credit to you guys as well. I think it speaks a lot to your character and your drive. So I won't give the school all the credit. Maybe I'll even give their mom some credit to instill those behaviors in you. But I think it's the multidisciplinary component of your curriculum and the fact that it's not just all engineering all the time. That to me is what stands out as a very valuable dynamic that you guys had in your coursework.
Great answer. And yeah, I would completely agree with what you said. Okay, next question. What challenges has your student faced at USC and how did your family navigate them? Like trying to think, and then I'm like, are there any embarrassing challenges he could say?
I'll try and keep those out of it, if you will. Well,
or even just one example.
So yeah, I mean, a few things stand out. There was at a very small level, I remember Charlie had a challenge finding where to take a particular, when to take a particular class. He was trying to fit a physics class in his curriculum. That was challenging. But I think the biggest thing, in his in his fraternity life, there was a lot of change going on, and he was in a leadership position as a president of a fraternity. That's a big role, and there's lots of challenges you navigate. A whole organization of young men that that are navigating much of this for the first time, and you as a leadership community trying to lead them and guide them and protect them and advocate for them and police them and all the things that go with that. That was certainly challenging. We tried to be a sounding board and use our experiences as professionals and in other leadership positions to talk through different strategies and communication, but really just even checking in frequently. That's the main thing that your mom and I tried to do the most, is just check in and be present and available as much as we could. Maya, you had a period of time where you had some physical things that you were going through and you weren't feeling well, getting you to the right care, making sure that we're listening and just knowing that reminding you that it's going to be okay and you're going to get through it. And you throw a challenge like you're not feeling well, or you've got external pressures on top of classwork and all the other things that are going on in a college student's life, and it can be overwhelming. So we try to be calm and just there as much as we can. Those are a couple of the ones that stand out, I guess. Fortunately, we're fortunate that there wasn't any major dramas or types of scenarios that were exceptionally challenging. Nothing that we had to get on a plane and go address. So
yeah, which is nice. And honestly, thinking back, like I think there were definitely some micro challenges that we faced, but I think you and mom did a really good job of like you would always be there as a resource, but you weren't like trying to solve all of our challenges for us or like sign us up for courses or like I know Charlie was
Yeah.
having some issues
Yeah.
with registration, and it's like I guess it could probably be tempting to step in as a parent and be like, "Oh, I know how to do this. I can do this." But I think you guys really served us well by um allowing us to struggle with our challenges ourselves and like build resilience in these new skills. So,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And let's be honest, you two, had the advantage of having a family resource with each other to bounce those off. That's pretty unique. But yeah, and you each have friends that provided that same resource. I think my guidance would be for anybody to make sure that you develop and find those people that you can trust that are in your community outside of your parents to use as resources and help calm you when you need calming and help motivate you when you need motivating and just kind of walk with you in every other circumstance. I think
mhm.
that's important.
Yeah, completely agree. All right, next one, kind of fun. How would you describe the overall campus life at USC? Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, there's kind of, you before COVID and after COVID. Let's just focus on the after COVID because before COVID,
Mhm,
I think is
mhm,
hopefully nobody's going to experience that campus life. So, I think living afar, you've seen, I've been aware of USC football, the marching
mhm,
band, kind of the grandeur. It's a big brand. So getting up close to it, I've seen, that there's just a lot more, I guess the community spirit is very strong. There's a strong culture. There's a lot of, it's kind of a work hard, play hard type of community. I think there's definitely a lot of attention paid to academics and it might just be the people that you hang out with too, right? But I think in general, USC has a pretty high standard for academics, and frankly, if you're not interested in working that hard, it's probably not going to be a good place for you to be there.
mhm,
That being said, it never felt like it was overwhelming all the time.
mhm,
There were definitely periods of time that were very demanding, but there are also downtimes and plenty of things to do. I think both of you do a good job every day of doing things that are just kind of for yourselves, whether that's going to the gym
mhm,
or just going to hang out with some friends, going to the beach, going out for coffee, going to parties and some of the extracurricular events and things like that. There's just always such a variety of things to do. It's one of the benefits of a big college.
mhm,
And you considered smaller schools and bigger schools. I thought you would probably see yourself at either. I know you're
mhm,
very happy with your decision. Charlie always was looking for a bigger school. And kind of the one thing that stood out to you through the whole college recruitment process was the number of opportunities available at a school, and you were noticing which ones had a lot and which ones did not have many. And USC was one of those that had a lot of opportunities. And so really doesn't matter what area you're interested in, you'll probably find a community of people that are interested in it also at USC and enables you to participate. So that part I think was pretty remarkable. And of course, coming from the upper Midwest, the weather was something that was always something to remark on because it was, typically pretty spectacular where you're at. And when it was snowing where we were and it was 65, 75 degrees here in California, then, it was very obvious that was making a big impact on your mood. So that was good.
mhm. Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think you captured it very well.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I think this next question you've touched on a little bit, but if you have anything to add about how involved you and mom have been in our USC experience, or just like in what ways
Um,
you've been
yeah.
involved.
So, we were always wanting to make sure we came to visit once or twice a semester. We wanted to be here to meet your friends, to see the things that you're doing. Charlie plays club basketball. I'm able to come and watch him sometimes. You have, friends that you've met, and we'll come out and take them to dinner. We've actually, you've been able to kind of travel with those friends. And, I think our goal was always to support you and encourage those activities, and where it was appropriate to join along. When we could bribe you to come on spring break with us, we would do
Oh,
that.
I don't even need to bribe me, honestly. Like
Yeah.
every year, I'm very sad that you guys aren't like going on a spring break this year. I totally would.
Yeah, I know. Well, and it got different this year because your sister's in college now too. Your sister is in San Diego, doesn't have the same spring break, and so
Mhm.
there isn't the same draw of bringing everybody together. But
Yeah.
we are going to be in going on a short trip all together this next weekend, so that will be
Mhm.
fun.
Looking
Um,
forward to it.
yeah, but our goal was always to always know what you're doing and be able to talk with you about what you're doing, and then come experience it once or twice a semester when we could.
Mhm.
So that was our plan. Everybody's
Mhm.
going to be a little bit different, but that's how we wanted to approach it.
Mhm. Awesome. That transitions well into another question. So, what advice do you have for other parents whose students are about to attend USC?
Yeah. So I don't, I never presume that my way is the right way or people should do things my way. I would always, I guess, encourage, though, you to remain involved with them, be available to them. That's probably the number one thing that we can do as parents, is make sure that they know that we're available, and provide some of that familiarity and safety. But also, and we talked about this earlier, not to just solve things for them. That it's important at this time to build skills of resilience, and picking yourself up from failures, and also finding your own way to success that you can look back and take pride in, and build confidence, and all those skills are important. And college is a time when you're able to make some mistakes, and you're able to have some successes without maybe as much to kind of lose. So it's a little bit safer, and it's that kind of bridge to being an adult. And it's important to take that time to let them have successes and failures. It's very challenging as a parent to do that sometimes, but like I said, I think it's important. I know you noticed it. That would be my main piece of advice. And to have some empathy for the student experience.
Mhm.
You guys don't always do things the way that I would do them, but by and large, you're being true to yourselves, and I think that's the most important piece.
Mhm. Very well said. And for what it's worth, I really do appreciate you and mom and all the different ways that you've been supportive and involved. I can't imagine like you guys have done. Like I can't imagine you guys doing anything that would have been more supportive and better for us.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
good. Spoken like a girl who wants to go on spring break.
No, you guys are going to what is it, Italy without us? So my ship's already sailed, unfortunately.
No, I appreciate you saying that, Maya, and I know that's the case. You guys have always been very good at expressing gratitude. So
Awesome. Well, I have our last fun question.
okay.
Can you share a few memorable moments or experiences your family has had related to your student attending USC? Any funny
Mhm.
USC stories or anecdotes or fun ones?
Sure. Well, let's see. Going back to Explore,
Mhm.
our first time. Well, that was our second time on campus. The first time on campus was memorable, and I remember, our first view at what the buildings were like in the landscape. I remember
Mhm.
Explore and how they organized that. That was cool. I remember seeing the marching band for the first time,
Mhm.
and that was pretty cool. I remember the first semester in our basement and the online classes.
Yeah, memorable.
I remember moving you in the gateway. and saying goodbye to you for the first time. That was hard, but a milestone moment. I remember coming out to visit and getting places like staying at the Fig in downtown LA. I remember renting a place in Venice. That was pretty cool. And some of those trips were really fun. Remember going to the Coliseum when it was pretty dead, and then seeing Lincoln Riley get hired and kind of breathe a whole new sense of optimism and life into that program, and how much fun that was for you, in particular, not this last season, but the one prior, when they were within a hair of going to the national championship.
Gosh.
The BCS finals. So that was fun. Watching, club basketball, taking your friends out for dinner, those simple things. It's this way it's kind of always been with our family. The simple relational things have always meant the most to us, and just spending time with you in your environment, and with your mom and your sister and me, and spending time with you and Charlie has been, those are the ones that'll be most memorable for me, I guess.
Perfectly said. Aw. Well, those are all the questions I have. Is there anything else you want to talk about or you think is important to mention, like for any prospective parents or?
Yeah, I don't think there's any, real ground we haven't covered that would be important. I would just offer, I don't have any regrets over any of the time that you've been able to have here. I said this earlier, but I'm so impressed by the preparation that you and your brother both have coming out of this institution, and the way that you're seem equipped to go at what you want in life, the way that you've been able to explore different things and find passions that are interesting to you, and then the quality of the relationships that you've built, and the friendships that you have that I know will endure, for your lifetimes. Those are all amazing experiences and things that you've been able to get. And obviously, those are available for people that come to the school. So I'm a big fan. I'm a Minnesota guy, but USC is my second team now. So
Perfect part to end it on. Well, thank you for joining me today, Dad. And yeah, for all of you listening, I hope you enjoyed hearing my wonderful dad speak about my time at USC.
Sounds good. Fight on.
Welcome back to the Paul and Maya show.
Not anymore. I mean, like I'm telling you, now that we had your brother on last week and then your dad on this week,
Oh,
I guess this
gosh.
is Maya's podcast. I mean, this is a callback to where I was a little salty last week.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't think about it until after I recorded with my dad, and I was like, oh, I'm just making my way through my family.
Yeah, next time your
But
dog's gonna be on, it's gonna have like
actually, he might have been barking in the back of my dad's video. But yeah, in hindsight, I think my dad honestly did a really good job of answering the questions and walking through the process. So everybody listening to the podcast is probably very, very familiar with my family's background and
Yeah.
in general what that process is like, which I
Well,
know like obviously isn't transferable to everyone, but hopefully is just a glimpse into like what one path has been like.
of course, insight is insight, and yeah, everybody's going to have a unique experience. So I'm glad you recognize that. But in doing this, kind of conversation that you led with your dad, and also listening to the other conversation, was there something that you learned that you never really knew or never really was as clear on after having this conversation? Kind of, you have a different perspective now on.
I think yes. Like I think this conversation really gave me more empathy to a parent's perspective and honestly how hard it can be for some parents to send their kids off to college, particularly if a family is close or if a family lives further away. Like I know we were in this episode that we're like the parents featured were both parents of students who were out of state. So I think
Yeah.
like there's that transition into college, and regardless of how far you are, I think it's like a big step. But just to hear about like the different challenges that they faced where like they'd want to be connected. But I know that my dad and my mom were personally they were very intentional about like always being there as a resource, but not being overbearing or like constantly checking in, and also letting us kind of work through challenges on our own. So I think like that gave me new empathy to the perspective of a parent and like the urge of like wanting to help your student, and then wanting to understand the best way to do that.
Um, do you think you would have done anything differently through the college admission process or the college search process, knowing what you know now about it?
Hmm. Um, I think so my dad and I actually talked a little bit about like understanding like, not everything that you're looking for is about like status of a school. It's also important to understand like the flexibility within a curriculum if you're like sure on engineering, but you're not sure which type of engineering.
Hmm.
It's definitely worth looking into like how flexible different universities programs are and like whether there is that space to change or not. Also like just size of a college. So I think I would probably like have these conversations with my parents and determine more in advance like what those factors in a school that I was looking for is instead of just like kind of going onto a list of top schools and just trying to cast a wide web.
And ultimately, what would, given that maybe we have in this particular episode, we have a number of parents listening and you have their ears right now.
Mhm.
What is the one piece of advice you would give to all the parents of newly admitted students, as they're helping their sons and daughters navigate this challenging decision process?
Mhm. So they're newly admitted students, but they haven't committed to USC yet.
No, yeah. So the students have been admitted and they're struggling with choice. They're struggling with opportunities. They're quote unquote trying to make the right choice. And parents right now of those students are listening to this episode. What's your advice to those
Mhm.
parents?
My advice first would be to just like allow the student an opportunity to like really immerse themselves in the campus and understand what it would be like if they were a student there. I think in my experience, attending the Explore USC event really did that for me.
Right.
But I understand it's not always reasonable for everybody to be able to visit campus in person. So I think just looking at as many like events that the admission staff are hosting or like different opportunities to interact with current students, just really understanding like what that environment is like. And then you can make that step to see who you could be like if you were at that school and whether that's somebody you want to be, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It totally makes sense.
Mhm.
We often internally in our office make these grand platitudes about like, it's got to be hard for parents to be involved in the process, because I think ideally it is the student's choice. The students need to make the choice, but students rely on help and guidance from their parents, whether
Mhm.
they want to or not. And I think that that's an interesting dynamic of,
Mhm.
I think most parents are sitting there trying to help without seeming like they're trying to help, if that makes any sense. Like,
Mhm.
I don't want to make the decision for them, but gosh, I know them and I know that this, XYZ
Mhm.
would be great or that would not be great. And it's got to be this really weird dynamic of like,
Mhm.
like, I don't know, you do what you want to do, but here's my opinion. And, but then,
Yeah.
also as a 17-year-old, 16-year-old, like, well, I don't care what you like. I'm going to do what I want. That type of
Yeah.
situation. It's a really interesting, weird time for everybody, I think.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And it's like I think it's a new experience for a lot of well, like for probably all of the students, but for a lot of the parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely giving the students space to make their selection and being supportive throughout the process and like whatever they're interested in. But yeah, also always being there to support or listen to them reason through what college they wanted to go to. I know my family was very helpful with that. I think we went on a lot of walk and talks and just
Oh,
talked it through. Yeah.
interesting. What was your most stressful walk and talk?
Oh, gosh, most stressful walk and talk. I think this is before scholarships were released.
Oh,
And
you're
I
just
was
worried about
just
results?
like worried about results, but also like, yeah, so this is when all of the other college admissions decisions were released.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
there were a lot of unknown variables. And I think I was like, I'm a planner. So I think I was trying to force a plan on a situation.
Ah,
I didn't
mm,
know everything that was going to happen. So I know
mm,
that was a really stressful time. But
yeah. it is, I hate to say it because it sounds like I'm just like laughing at everybody, but I truly enjoy watching engineering students try to plan this thing out.
Oh,
Like
it's
your brain starts going in multiple directions, and whenever I tell somebody, I'm like, this doesn't go the way you want it to go, right? Like it's things happen to you, and you don't have any control. They're like, no, 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 I plan this stuff out. It's kind of that first lesson, and like we talk about it a lot with other students on the podcast about how did you think your first year in college was going to go versus how did it go? And it's always funny to talk to like a senior engineer because they just start laughing hysterically. They're like, oh, I thought I was going to do this completely differently.
no.
And boy, have I learned how the world works.
Yeah, I had this list that I made. You'll get a kick out of this. I made this list when I was a freshman in my first year at USC. And I think I called it my college domination list.
College domination. Oh my God. Not only are you like thinking you're in charge, you think you're just going to
Oh
kill it.
my gosh. It was so yeah. Anyways, so I had all of these different, very specific, might I add, items of like
Do you
what I
remember any of
wanted
them?
to accomplish. I do. Well,
You're like, here it is. Here's my list right here. As a matter of fact.
one of them was to become a core power instructor at the village.
Oh, wow.
So, like, I did not accomplish that, but in hindsight, and this is the point of now mentioning the list, is like I look back and I'm like, yes, all these things were great, and this is like what I thought I wanted to do when I was a freshman, but like going to college, I was introduced to so many more things. So now I think like the culmination of what I actually did in college is better than my college domination list.
I think you just came up with a new episode.
College domination.
Yeah, it's seniors on their way out and like like what you thought you were gonna do versus what you did and like the differences in the people. Like I don't know,
That's a
that could
good
be an episode.
episode.
I
That
mean,
that
especially if you all get around like in one room with a couple microphones, like get it off of Zoom and just like
uh-huh.
have a chat. That might be a fascinating exercise
Okay, dude.
of like what did you think you were gonna do? And like you start with like my core power instructor. Like why was that on the list?
I know. My roommate would just look at me and laugh. It's not that I don't go to the gym, but I've actually never been to Core Power in the village. Just a
You've never
funny
even
thing.
been, but you said you're gonna be an instructor.
Yeah, this is when I was at home. But yeah, it's definitely funny looking back on it.
Well, so I always think back to because this has nothing to do with like the college search process, but I distinctly remember when I was in elementary school, I want to say, might have been middle school, but elementary school. And I went to like a buddy of mine, and again, close friend at the time, couldn't tell you what his name is now. But we would go to the local frozen yogurt place, Golden Spoon, back in the day, which if anybody's from Orange County, they may remember Golden Spoon, but Golden Spoon, and we'd like ride our bikes over to Golden Spoon, and I'd get my strawberry frozen yogurt with the toppings with fresh strawberries, not the strawberry jam, but the fresh
Mm-hmm.
strawberries because that was legit. And we'd eat our frozen yogurt and we would talk about our college plans and how at the time we were going to be going to UCI. Like that was where we're going, UC Irvine. And we had plans on what we would do and how we would do it and everything else. And I'm like, man, just completely different lives but it's good to think about. It's not a bad
Mm-hmm.
thing. It's just kind of funny about how you think like you
Mm-hmm.
you will do these things and how stuff changes as you go through your
Yeah.
life.
One of those things that is good to think about. And I think it was good for me to think about like my college domination list and just like in general what I wanted to do and be involved and stuff. But like you have to understand that that plan is not set in stone and that you shouldn't try to force it on your 4 years in college because like it's not something that's meant to be planned as much as I hate to say it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good to have the list. I think that's the important part is you have
Mhm.
the list because well, I think the cool part about it is that it's not that you didn't do the list. It's that your experience at USC started presenting you with a list you didn't even know existed. And
Mhm.
you're like, oh, what is this? And you started doing that. And I think that that's really cool because I don't think anyone would ever argue that you did not have a domination of USC.
Yes.
To me, that's what it is. It's like
Mhm.
how I planned to dominate college and how I really dominated
Mhm.
college. Those are the two differences. And everybody needs
Yeah.
to come to that episode with a list, like what's the list and what they're going to share
Oh yeah.
of ideas of this is what I thought I was going to do. Can you believe it?
Okay. Great episode idea. I'm excited already.
Yeah, it's got to be an evening. It's got to be like you guys in the same room.
Mhm.
You
Maybe
know,
some
I think
pizza.
yeah, some snacks. You know, I'll pay for it. Happy to.
Mhm.
So yeah, put it on the bill, and we'll take care of it.
Awesome.
Sweet. Well, hey, fantastic episode, fantastic topic. I hope that the parents listening had, or even students listening to understand that perspective, had a great time, and I hope they learned something. And other than that, I think we should get out of here while we can, and we will see you all next week with another episode of Viterbi Voices. Thanks, Maya.